Welcome back for the final segment of this SmartCom Summit. Let's try to draw some conclusions. I have 4 guests. Let me start with you, Sebastiaan Hoogstadt with Polly. We saw you in your little masterclass about your personas. Yeah. Interesting, thank you very much. But looking back this whole afternoon, what's your takeaway?
I think the ongoing and increasing speed of change.
What does that mean?
In every segment. So whatever people see today and consider as the new normal won't be the new normal again tomorrow. Massive change, and it's very simple. You either embrace it or you'll be left behind. There's no choice. It's not like it's not going to happen if you put your head in the sand.
It's like Bill Gates said, right? I mean, innovation distinguishes the followers from the leaders.
I think so.
Okay. No? Remco?
Well,
you're not going to quote Steve Jobs, probably, right?
No, definitely not. No, but today we're reinventing the future of work, and that future is hybrid. And the future is bright too, because it combines the best from the work we used to do at the office and work from remote. However, we're only scratching the surface. So hybrid work is not 2 days at the office and the rest from home. It's much more than that, and we've begun to scratch the surface. So there's so many more possibilities to increase our productivity and well-being at work with hybrid.
Yeah. Anne, your takeaway?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think we've heard a lot of challenges today, but we also heard a lot of potential that this COVID brings. And I think if we focus on this potential and are going to be innovative with it, we can create a much better world, I would say.
And our inspirational leader here, SmartCom leader.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious how, what do people... So the way I look at it is we have tech companies right here, agile, modern working, blah, 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 and breathing and living their own technology and their own platforms. We heard Stijn also, what is happening at Enreach and Microsoft. I mean, but now if you're not in this space, if you have a normal company and you're not sure what technology companies are doing, where do you start?
Could be scary for them, right?
It could be very scary. And what do people do when they're scared? They wait. Let's wait for, I don't know, the government to explain how it should be done.
Even worse, proactive resistance.
They hold off, they blame other people.
Yeah, resistance to change.
So where to start? And we heard Adrian say it's slow cooking and it takes time. And I'm convinced that 10 years from now everything will be different. But I also think that, as you said, it's a change that's happening now. And companies that want to excel and thrive and do better, they can make decisions to do things different tomorrow, next week, January 1st. So where to start?
Because we heard Sebastiaan talk about the different personas, right, within a company, employees. And you guys, Microsoft has an extremely broad client base, right? I mean, it's everything all over the world. I can imagine you guys, also, diversify and say, what kind of clients do we have? What kind of customers do we have? And they have totally different and wide-ranging wishes and demands and expectations. Right?
That's definitely right, yeah. So what you see is that our products cater to both knowledge workers, the information workers, to the first line workers, but in a general sense. And I think the strength of what Microsoft does is that we design our products as a platform. Because when you sell a generic product to those two groups, the first line workers and the information workers, it can never cater to all needs. Right. So you can do that when you enable your product to be a platform and enable other companies to develop software to cater it to the needs of specific verticals, for example. Yeah.
Well, and I think specific cultures also, right? Because we are pretending sometimes that all the world, everybody is the same. But if you look at, let's start with Europe. We have 27 countries, or 28 or 29. I don't know what the current count is. They're all different in their mindset, right? So we look at Western Europe and the Nordics and the UK. We're kind of advanced in cloud and everything. Other countries are different. So I think there's a big role for the local system integrators, resellers. telcos.
On the other hand, Rob, I wouldn't overcomplicate things either. I mean, the workshop I went through with Marcel this afternoon with the personas, I mean, we did research in worldwide companies of a certain size, and we came to the conclusion that in general, we can fit people in one of 6 personas. There's always exceptions, but a significant percentage of everybody who does work fits in those 6 personas. And I'm fine if you tweak them locally, but in the end, it's still their type of work. Whether you're in Asia Pacific, in the US, in Africa, in Europe, we can do that. So don't overcomplicate things. And the same goes, the most successful proof of concepts I've seen with platforms like Teams are small proof of concepts where you can quickly change and adapt things and just experience what works for my organization. And that is definitely, we have introduced new equipment to that end. It's no longer massively complicated stuff where you need an engineering degree to implement it. It's relatively simple, standardized, it will work and is authorized on certain platforms, go. And that's the most successful proof of concepts that we've seen. Nimble, smart, well measurable, go.
That would also be my advice to those companies who haven't started that on this journey. Start, because what we've learned from the pandemic is that it's different for every company. Every company has a different work style. Every individual has a different work style. The products are designed in such a way it meets the needs of those different work styles. So don't wait for a way that's right or proven. Just start and on the experiment and find out what works best for your company and the employees.
But Anna, do you still see entrepreneurs, corporations that are holding off, the smaller ones, maybe less advanced, maybe?
I think
it's also a money thing. I mean, you have to invest in the stuff you guys are selling, right? I can imagine entrepreneurs with all the uncertainty and in some, sectors of the economy, huge problems. And let's not forget it. I mean, and holding off, said, "Oh, not right now." Maybe, for example, in the hospitality business, right? I mean, worldwide, huge problems.
Yeah. I think as it scales up, they'll face other problems where this technology could help them. I think the other challenge that these smaller businesses have that software is eating the world, but they don't have the developers, so they have to lean on other partners to have it implement. And then on the one hand, you have standardization, just like you said. In this space, we've been standardizing, but then every small business has its own little variant, and I think that's been the challenge. How do you build something that is standardized? But at the same time, you can customize it without the cost of customization. And this is also
we tend to talk in meetings like this. We tend to talk about the winners, guys who are corporations, are successful. And part of the economy and part of your client base, for example, Microsoft again has such a broad client base. I can imagine it's not just winners, and you have to cater to those folks as well.
Yeah, but Microsoft cannot win without the partners. They not only deploy it with the customers, but also they had developed the software on top of our solutions and extend these solutions. And I wouldn't consider Microsoft a winner if you don't meet all customer needs. So I think the main takeaway here is that the tech giants like Microsoft have to collaborate with smaller ISVs that customize the software and extend the generic experience the tech giants offers.
So it's about collaboration across the board. I think it's interesting to think about. Microsoft is a big leader in the space, right? Just like Zoom. I mean, there's a couple of these platforms that are really huge, and I think somebody mentioned recently that Microsoft has an $18.2 billion investment budget per year. And then the question was to some of the smaller players, how are you going to compete? And I guess the answer is you don't compete, you collaborate. And you augment, because there's so much to do. It's not a competition play right now. It's how do we get to the next phase all together, innovate, and then maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, we'll see the competition and sort out that stuff. But right now it's about taking advantage of the possibilities that are there and moving forward, because at the end of the day, it's about people, right? It's about people and jobs and wellness, and we touched on that also. It's about diversity. We don't have people, there are no people, and the people are getting sick and are falling out of the workplace. It's a serious issue for all of us. And that's, I think, for me, the main takeaway it's not a competition thing. And that's why we never talk about this product is better than that product. It's about how do we get together, and how do we as an industry also take that responsibility and that leadership to move forward and to embrace, let's say, the rest of the companies that need help. That's also why, I mean, with the summit, we started as a talk show a year and a half ago, right? Let's do a talk show because we're in lockdown. Now it's more a platform, and we've changed this winter summit into a series of 10 weeks with recurring. It's like cooking. Every week there's a little bit, and we'll continue to do that next year with a bunch of tracks on leadership and modern work and customer all these things that are important, and we'll come back. And I think that's the mission that we have as an industry to educate the world on what's possible.
And I'm curious to hear from you guys. I talked to Adrian and I made the comparison with the introduction of the car over 100 years ago, right? I mean, from a horse carriage to a carriage with an engine. And when that happened, people said, oh, that's a revolution. And it truly was a revolution. And if you look at the early pictures of cars, it looked like a horse carriage. Where are we now? Are we in the phase of a horse carriage with an engine? At the very beginning of a huge innovation track that's going to happen in the next, maybe not a couple of years, but in the next 10 or 15 years? Where are we? Because we have to realize, looking at history, innovation never stops. You tend to assume, today with the frightful five, well, Microsoft is one of them, but that's going to last forever? No, probably not. If you look at history, probably not. I don't know what's going to happen, but where are we in this? I mean, let me ask you, Microsoft guy, where are we?
I think, we've begun in a glass
bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a little crystal ball, but we're in the last 10 minutes of the show, so.
Yeah, I think we're. So what COVID has done is has ensured we have a massive acceleration of adoption. So it's becoming even harder to look into that glass ball. We couldn't have imagined that 2 years ago we would have hybrid meetings at large scale with people joining from different places. Now there's the new technologies being experimented with, like augmented reality, mixed reality. We think it's far ahead, but maybe we'll use it sooner because we're used to faster rate of adoption. So who knows? Maybe we'll see that new technologies getting adopted faster. There's also a worry though, because as you said, acceleration is increasing. What happens nowadays is that people can't keep track of innovation. And technology and innovation is useless if people don't use it. Yep. So right now, trust it, exactly. Yeah. So right now in the software we have, there are literally hundreds of features to enable you to have a more productive workday or to work with a higher, to ensure more well-being in employees. But it's not being used. So, and that challenge will become bigger as the rate of innovation accelerates.
I think training and education of people, there's a lot of fear for technology as well. Will artificial intelligence become like this lord and master in our lives? I don't believe that, but if you apply it the wrong way, it definitely could. And there's a lot of things people don't understand about technology. Features in Microsoft, people might not even be aware of it. So it's training and education on how to use stuff, what your smartphone is actually doing.
Because it changes every week, right? It's very hard to keep track of and to predict where it's going. And as long as you're in a mindset of I want to plan next year what's going to happen. So I think that's the starting point, right? Let it go in a way. It's trust your people to take steps, do the small proof of concepts or work agile.
Because isn't one of the lessons of the whole COVID epidemic that it shows so clearly how easily people lose control and then lose trust in science, in governments, in doctors, in anything. And losing control, losing trust, and getting angry. Yep. And that will be, catastrophic for your business. I'm not saying that people don't trust you, but in general, you know what I'm saying?
No,
the whole process of losing control and then eventually turning it into some kind of anger and lack of trust.
Yeah, and the hard part, I think, for us in the industry, me coming from kind of a technical background, is that it's really hard to look at ourselves from the outside. So for me, it's all normal. I've been using the thing before Slack called FlowDoc, for years before Slack came out. So it was like when Slack came out or Teams, I'd already experienced it.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the holodeck, by the way. So for me, it's still early days, I would say.
Take notes. Yeah.
But I agree. There is a risk that we're losing people, and I think we have to step back sometimes and make our technology a lot more. Take out a lot of features and make it a lot simpler and focus on those features. And I think within Enreach, that's been my challenge as well with a lot of smaller companies using our products. How do we take these pretty advanced like conversational AI? Can I sell that to a small company? No, you can't. You have to start looking at their pain and where you could help them and not talk about those technology things.
Because you see in technology, innovation never stops, but it also always goes through phases of distrust. Look at the train, look at the car, look at computers, look at the television. That's
change. And change.
You have to take it into account, being in this market.
No, I fully agree. And I think every change, although people think they are, they are well adopted to do change, it's not in your nature. You don't want to change. So change management and making people actually follow your lead and follow your ideas, well, that requires knowledge on how to communicate it and how to get these people to come with you, to come along, and that goes for the train, and that goes for the planes, and that goes for cars, and that also goes for the
television was the end of the world, sir.
It was the end of the world. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, what's the lesson of history, Rob?
Well, I'm thinking back. Sorry, Remco, about to Steve Jobs when he came out with the iPhone, and there was a certain gentleman from Microsoft.
Yeah.
Let's say the old Microsoft in a way.
Steve Ballmer.
Yeah. Who said it's impossible, blah, blah, blah. And Nokia everybody thought it was impossible, and 2 or 3 years later it was the new normal, right? And people loved that change, by the way. I think people don't mind change, they don't want to be changed, right? They want to be in some sort of role themselves. And the thing with the iPhone was, of course, it was simple. It was the most simple. That's why nobody believed it would work. It was so simple. Didn't even have a keyboard and didn't even.
It was a combination of existing technology.
And it didn't have a battery, and nobody thought it would work. And now here we are. And I think that's the next step for the technology, because also the iPhone with the App Store, it allowed people, the users, it gave them control. They can put on that device whatever they wanted to do. So I think if we're going to that phase now, and I agree with you about the car, I think it's a horseless carriage right now. Where to start, which is great because there's so many opportunities and so many possibilities, and we hear what's happening inside Microsoft because you shared some of the internal developments, right, that you're testing. It's really cool. Yeah. All that stuff is coming. It's going to help us do our work.
But the lesson also is here, looking back, it's very much about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
The right mindset, the right climate, the right atmosphere in a company, and you guys, he mentioned that fact way back, and Microsoft came back, I mean, in a great way. So that's also about creativity and entrepreneurship, I think. Do you think, Anna?
I agree, yeah, and I think hyperscalers have really helped those small companies. We used to be a small company, build things and scale in a way that even big companies can't, and I think that's been a real, interesting move that I've seen in our industry. As a small company, you can be so you can build things so quickly and scale to a level where you could only dream of.
10 years ago.
And actually, you have an advantage over the bigger companies where they are still like focused on their own things, and hyperscalers are a threat. And so, I think entrepreneurs have the ability now to compete with the big players. I would say.
We're almost out of time, finally, and I'm starting with you, Remco. Looking forward, what's the biggest challenge, the biggest opportunity going forward with a company like Microsoft? Or for you personally, I mean, what do you see looking at all this stuff we've been discussing here?
I think that realizing the workplace is different for every company and every individual, and having a solution that enables them to work in the way they want to. Mm-hmm. So here you see the platform strategy again. Doesn't matter which application you're used to, can compete with Microsoft, doesn't matter. Please install it on Teams. Yep. Works the same with the iPhone. Why did the iPhone really take off? Yep. It was because of their platform strategy. Same with Microsoft Teams. And I think that's really one of our main focus, enable people to work in the way they want to work.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the platform thought. I think the other challenge is scaling it. So even though we have all these companies and the ISVs that are building solutions on top of it, maybe that's not enough. And this is where we've been trying to experiment with taking it a level higher with kind of a scripting language that could also be done by non-developers to bring in this community of non-developers, because we actually have too little developers, I think.
Yeah. So it's a whole
in this world.
no-code thing.
Exactly. I think there's a whole space there in the low-code, no-code area.
Yep.
And it should not be, because you see the no-code part, I think sometimes is too trivial. It's easy, but you can only do trivial stuff. And we're finding a balance there where maybe the programming is a bit too hard. We're trying to navigate this in between, where it should be easy but not trivial.
Yep.
Yeah, I think apart from everything that's already said, experience equality. No matter where you are, no matter where you are situated at the moment, the way you collaborate with your colleagues, your peers, your stakeholders, it's the same experience wherever you are. And that technology is already there for largely, but it's still being improved, and we can make the communication as natural as possible, and it regardless of time and place.
Yeah. And Rob, and before I give you the floor, thank you for putting this program together. I think you did, again, a tremendous job.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we're bringing these people together and that we're continuing it on a more regular basis in smaller bits and pieces. Because I think it's important that we have discussion, and I'm looking forward to all the great things that people are building or making or changing, because that's the way we're building, we're rebuilding, we ourselves as a society, we're rebuilding our office of the future, our companies of the future. And I think the next couple of years are going to be very interesting to see what comes out as the winner. And there's no crystal ball. There is no crystal ball. That's my conclusion from today.
Crystal ball is very low tech, you know that, right?
I know.
Very low tech.
Very low tech.
Okay. Thank you so much, all four of you, for joining us and the other speakers this afternoon. That concludes this summit, ladies and gentlemen. I saw an interesting quote somebody said about creativity and innovation, who said creativity is thinking up new things, innovation is doing new things. And I would add, leadership is not only being creative, being innovative, but building trust among your employees, your stakeholders, and people around you. Thank you very much. I hope you can help in building that trust. Thank you very much.